Welcome. Anybody here for the first time tonight? Welcome to you. Welcome to you. Welcome. Welcome back, everyone else. Welcome to anybody joining us for the first time on Zoom. We're having some Zoom issues. I need to let my co-host back into the Zoom room. Jeff, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Plug it back in. It fixes everything.
Okay. I made you co-host again. You're back in charge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start with a minute or two of silence to reflect on the fires in Los Angeles, Altadena, Palisades. People in our community that lost homes. All of the people who are not in our community that lost homes, lost everything. When you're ready, you can allow your eyes to open. Last week, I started a series. We did loving kindness practice. I gave you homework, those of you here last week, to do metta, loving kindness practice all week. And what a week it has been in Los Angeles. And I hope that you did do loving kindness, whether you're here or you're visiting, joining us from somewhere else in the state or country. Appropriately, the topic in the series for tonight is compassion. And we'll do compassion meditation tonight, and I'll talk about compassion, and I'll share some reflections on the disaster that we lived through this this week. Maybe some of us more directly affected than others. Handful of people from our community that I know about that lost their homes, that lost everything this week. And then all of the rippling kind of effects that kind of loss, and the fear that is naturally in the air from all of us being in the city that was on fire on both sides. And I do like to begin by asking you to talk to each other. Part of the intention, part of my motivation to teach weekly groups is to help facilitate you making connections with each other, developing what we call in Buddhism Sangha, community. It's one of the core tenets. It's one of the refuges, each other. That Buddhism is a practice, a teaching, a tradition, a path that is relational. That's about our relationships and how we speak to each other and how we listen to each other and how we show up for each other, and learn how to have conflict and learn how to forgive each other and learn how to be relational. So I like to, and it's my own experience as a student in Buddhist meditation groups is that it can be a bit challenging to connect and get to know people in a scenario where you're showing up to meditate in silence, and then you're listening to a talk, and then you're leaving. So it can be hard to get to know each other, and especially for those of you who are a bit introverted or avoidant or shy or judgmental or whatever it is. I know my own experience in early meditation groups is that I'd show up, I'd meditate, and then I'd leave real quick so I didn't have to talk to any of the old ladies that I was meditating with, and just was out. So I like to force you to connect in service of developing community. The topic for tonight is compassion. And if those of you here in the room, if you want to talk about how if you were in LA this week and the fires and the kind of how painful that was, the unpleasantness of the living, through this, and were you able to bring some compassion or some loving kindness? Did you do your homework? Were you sending loving kindness to yourself and to all of the community that was affected by these fires? Loving kindness, compassion. What was your response? If maybe those of you at home that weren't here locally, I know that probably a lot of you know people in Los Angeles, and just that fear of like, are my friends, my loved ones, people that I care about okay? I know that there was a lot of reaching out to people, and you see it on the news and it looks like everyone's dying. The whole city's on fire. And it depends on what neighborhood, right? Like people in the Palisades or in Altadena, just devastated. And then, us down here on the west side by the beach, fine, other than the toxic smoke for a couple days. So topic is compassion, and were you able to practice it some this week? And if you're somewhere where you weren't affected by it at all, or maybe, it wasn't so much on your radar, maybe just reflect a little bit on your relationship to compassion. Is Buddhism helping you become friendlier to pain, your pain and other people's pain? And we'll talk about that, and we'll meditate on that tonight. So go ahead, find 2 or 3 people. Good to connect with people you don't know yet, but talk to whoever you like. And at home, I'll open breakout rooms. I'll say a few things about compassion before we meditate. The word that we translate as compassion from the ancient Buddhist language, the Pali language, is karuna. And karuna translates, we call it compassion, but the literal translation is something like the heart being moved in response to pain, feeling a sense of caring, of feeling moved, feeling friendly, feeling warm towards pain, both one's own pain, what we call self-compassion, or the pain of others. In true highest form of compassion, there is zero attachment to it being different than it is. And there is zero suffering about the pain that is happening, whether it's your own pain or someone else's pain. So that's the highest level. Most of us probably don't experience a lot of that completely non-attached compassion. And we have the kind of humility to admit that often our compassion is mixed with some attachment and desire for the pain to go away, rather than just a complete acceptance of the pain that is happening and a non-aversive, non-resistance to that which is being experienced as painful or unpleasant. I've seen a couple of times recently some Buddhist teachers, even one that was posting something in response to the fires, defining compassion by caring with the desire to help, with the compassion, and that's sometimes it's engaged compassion of helping when we can, doing what we can to help out of care, helping each other. I don't mind it so much, but I have a little bit of a feeling that helping doesn't always mean that the pain needs to go away. I think often the way that I was reading it anyways was this feeling of like compassion is wanting to help people avoid pain or free them from pain. And my sense is that, I mean, of course, sometimes pain is unbearable and not useful, but that sometimes pain is quite useful and not something to be avoided, but something to be felt and learned from. And partially I take this from Buddhist study, and partially I take this from my own subjective experience of many of the very painful experiences that I've had in this lifetime. And how much I've learned from walking through painful experiences, and how, in retrospect, beneficial most of the pain that I have experienced has been to my process of awakening and to developing compassion. We live in a world, a culture, a body that thinks that pain is wrong and bad, and we're aversive to pain. So much of the Buddha's teaching is trying to normalize the pain of existence, to acknowledge the fact that we live in these bodies, the second foundation of mindfulness, that we live in these bodies where we're constantly bombarded by feeling tones. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant, some are painful. And so on the subtle level, unpleasant sounds, unpleasant smells, unpleasant tastes, unpleasant sights, unpleasant sensations in this physical body. You can't have a body and not have pain. Unpleasant thoughts, unpleasant emotions are just part of the package. Pain is unavoidable. The whole Buddhist picture is, how do we stop suffering about all of the pain that we experience? How do we change our relationship to pain? And meditation is the core technique, but also some of it is the study and the understanding and kind of getting our minds around this very counterintuitive reality that pain is not the enemy and that pain's never leaving. Even if you get, here's the bad news of Buddhism. Even if you become a fully enlightened being, even if you become a Buddha, you will not end pain in your life. The enlightenment that is promised, that is the goal of Buddhist practice, is not the end of pain. It's not the end of loss. It's not the end of impermanence. It's not the end of the difficult reality that we have while we're here. It's the end of suffering about pain. It's the end of suffering about loss. It's the end of suffering about impermanence. The difference between the Buddha and us is that we're still clinging and craving and meeting with aversion, pain in our lives, rather than meeting with compassion. Compassion is the wisest, I might even go as far as to say the only wise relationship to pain. It's not our natural response. It's not easy. It's not a decision we can make. We all made that decision a long time ago. Like, I'm just going to be compassionate from now on. I'm not going to suffer about pain anymore. I'm going to meet it all with compassion. I made that decision decades ago, and I've been failing to meet all of the pain with compassion all of the time. But I've been trying. I've made progress, as all of you know, and you orient yourself towards, I need to stop trying to avoid pain and learn to be with it. Learn to be friendly towards it, learn to be caring towards it, learn to be merciful, compassionate towards my own pain and the pain of others, pain of ultimately all living beings that are experiencing pain. For those of us that didn't lose everything this week, it's a little hard to imagine what it's like for the people who did, and how painful, unpleasant, scary, devastating maybe it is for people to walk away from a home and then not come back and it's gone. And to lose all of the material things and all of and it's my sense of that kind of big loss. And I don't really know what I'm talking about, but my sense of it is, it's not just the stuff, it's the memories, and it's the location of home. And how unpleasant, how painful, how scary, how devastating that must be. And how worthy of compassion. I mean, there's when something like this happens locally close by, it's there, but there's so much pain in life every day, in every neighborhood, and in every culture, and in every place on this planet. We live in a pretty painful realm of existence. Some of the time for everyone, and a lot of the time for some. Compassion is a practice, it's a potential. We could look at it as a skill. I like to look at it as actually a skill that anyone can develop. If you want to train your heart and your mind, and these meditation techniques will lead to the direct experience of compassion. If you want to do the work to get there, compassion, I don't think, is a very natural state of being. It's pretty counter to our survival instinct to really deeply care about our own pain. Aversion is natural. Resentment is natural. Hatred is natural. Compassion, especially when it comes to our own pain, is not a necessary survival instinct. It's extra. I said it's the only wise relationship. It's the only, maybe we could even go as far as to say it's the only rational relationship to pain. Everything else makes it worse. Anything but compassion makes pain worse. Makes the unpleasantness worse. We know that, but it doesn't stop us from instinctually being like, I fucking hate pain. I hate loss. I hate not getting what I want. I hate all of the unpleasant parts of life. I only like the pleasant parts. I like getting what I want. I like keeping what I have. I like delicious things and pleasant smells. All the unpleasant stuff I could do without. And everybody on one level or another feels that way. It's natural, it's normal. Meditation teaches us. Last week, I talked about how mindfulness itself will teach us compassion. As I already said, the second foundation of mindfulness. The more that we turn towards pain and see that our natural aversive reaction to it, the more we'll start to settle into tolerance, accepting, learning to be uncomfortable. One of the important things about a meditation practice is learning to sit still and be uncomfortable. I know I'm really like permissive and I give you chairs and I don't care if you fidget and all of that stuff, but there is something to that, like a little bit stricter keeping a posture and saying, I'm going to sit up and I'm going to sit on a cushion or a chair, or whatever, and I'm going to sit still even when I'm in pain. And I'm going to learn to be uncomfortable, because this is where I'm going to learn compassion for pain, learning to be uncomfortable. I'm doing it intentionally to myself to train my mind, to orient my heart towards compassion for discomfort. I'm going to learn to sit still. I'm going to learn to sit in the discomfort. I'm going to learn to sit in the unpleasant, achy back and sore knees and loud mind, and learn to meet it with friendliness, tolerance, mercy, and ultimately train my mind to let go of that naturally delusional idea that there's something wrong if I'm uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's important to learn how to be uncomfortable. Now, I don't know about you, but before Buddhism, nobody told me this. I missed the memo that it was okay to be uncomfortable. It was meditation, it was Buddhism, it was the Dharma that taught me this. And that not only is it okay, but it's actually really, really necessary to learn to be in pain, to learn to be with pain. Because so much of life is unavoidably unpleasant. Compassion is a necessity. If you want to be happy, if you want to be at peace, if you want to not suffer so much, then compassion, it's not just extra, it's a necessity that we have to earn, that we have to develop, that we have to, there is the perspective that says your heart is naturally compassionate, but covering that naturally compassionate heart is judgment and fear and resentment and aversion to pain. And we get through those layers of judgment and fear and resentment and aversion through turning towards our pain, not avoiding it. I was talking to a friend earlier about a mutual friend who was walking away from a relationship because of what appeared to me to be like, just the discomfort, the difficulty of intimacy and of connection, and they have a meditation practice that is one that I would classify as one of the kind of bypass meditation practices and one of the sort of avoidance meditation practices, rather than turning towards pain and learning to be in it, sort of just doing the kind of listening to the pleasant sounds and doing the sort of, these meditations that give you an altered state that's pleasant, going to the sound bath, it's so pleasant. Nothing personal. Rather than I'm going to sit here and be uncomfortable and be with my own mind with no pleasant sounds, no distractions. I'm going to sit here and be with my pain. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about pain tonight because the topic is compassion. I do want to say for the record, of course, there's joy and pleasure and all kinds of other stuff to life. It's not all pain all of the time, but tonight we're talking about pain. Tonight we're talking about compassion. Say one more thing, then we'll meditate. My sense and my experience is that first we have to orient ourselves towards, I want to develop compassion. Now, when I came to Buddhist meditation 36 years ago, I did not have the intention to develop compassion. It wasn't on my radar. It wasn't something that I was looking for. I didn't understand it. I didn't even know what it was. What I had was a desire to not suffer. I was suffering a lot, and I thought meditation might help alleviate some of my suffering. As I learned about meditation, I learned that a central part of that was going to be compassion. So first, the aspiration. I want to end suffering. And the understanding of a central part of that's going to be compassion, developing, uncovering, experiencing compassion. And then I think that there's a kind of scale or continuum or that goes from wherever your natural default is. Some level of aversion to pain is the natural human default. I hate pain. Fuck pain. Everyone starts there on some level. Just look at a baby in the crib that's just there, even with good parents, not your parents, but good parents. That baby in the crib that's like, this, fuck pain. That's what that baby is crying about. I'm uncomfortable. I hate being uncomfortable. I want boob and I want swaddle and I want, warmth, and I want to be held all of the time. And anything that's not that is unpleasant. And I am going to let you know that I hate it. Natural, born into a body that hates being uncomfortable. All of us. And then, we start to learn. And then over on the other side is I'm okay being uncomfortable. Not only am I okay being uncomfortable, I care about it. And my heart is moved by my own pain. I feel friendliness. I feel empathy. I feel mercy. I feel love, caring towards my own. I can sit here in pain with a warmth and a friendliness. And that's the goal, non-attached, compassionate care. Now, getting from I hate to I care is a process. And it's a journey that for most of us takes many years of meditation practice, of training the mind, of creating neural pathways of compassion, of creating skill, of uncovering the heart that is becoming more tolerant. As I said, sitting meditation, learning to sit still teaches us a lot about it. Learning to sit. Sitting for longer periods of time. People come to meditation like, I can only sit for 5 minutes. And then you see, actually, I can sit for 20. I can sit for 30. I can sit for 45 minutes, even when my ass hurts. And I've learned to have a sore ass and a achy knee or a sore back or whatever, and that it's okay to be in pain. I've learned to tolerate it. And my sense on the journey to compassion, that there's a middle place, which is mercy. Mercy is, by definition, not causing harm, not creating suffering in a situation where you have the power to create suffering. Now, the Buddhist equation is anytime we meet pain with aversion, we create suffering. So non-aversion is mercy. Anytime we meet pain without aversion, it's an act of mercy. You know what I mean? Like, you're powerful. Sitting here, I could really make this shit worse than it is, but I'm not gonna. As an act of mercy on myself, I'm gonna not meet this with hatred. I'm gonna meet this with acceptance, with tolerance, with friendliness. The act of not making it worse is the act of mercy. It's already painful. And as I said, and I'll say over and over, you can't do anything about the pain. The pain that I'm talking about is the kind of pain that you can't do anything about. The unavoidable pain of existence. Now, as I say that out loud, I think it is important to remind everybody that Buddhism is not masochism. It's not like, oh yeah, like, you know, just develop a whole bunch of pain in your life, and we're not worshiping pain. We're just acknowledging the unavoidable reality that much of having a body and a heart and a mind is unpleasant on the daily basis. So there's unpleasantness every day in all of our lives. And then there's the big things. Fucking fire comes and burns down your neighborhood. Massive, unavoidable loss. Your relationship ends, your loved ones die, all of the heartbreak and of living in this world of change and impermanence and loss. So aversion, tolerance, mercy, towards becoming more and more not just tolerant, but friendly, caring, warm, towards compassion. And it's a journey I'm absolutely still on, but I've seen so much over the decades of meditation of moving from I hate all forms of pain and everything uncomfortable to pretty good at being uncomfortable. Meditation taught me how to do that. Getting better and better over the years at actually being friendly rather than aversive, being merciful, being non-resistant. Seeing how meditation has taught me, teaches us how to do that slowly. We make progress. We move the dial towards compassion. There's a Tibetan Buddhist practice that I always like to mention when I'm talking about compassion, where in Tibetan Buddhism, compassion becomes so central to their teaching that there's a practice where you actually pray, you wish for something unpleasant, an appropriate difficulty to happen every day. Can you imagine that orientation? Going from, like, most of us wake up and say, like, I hope nothing unpleasant happens today, to actually orienting yourself so much to compassion, to every day saying, like, I hope something appropriately unpleasant happens so that I have the opportunity to have compassion today. I want to have compassion. I want to become wiser and more open-hearted. And so I hope that I have I hope that there's some challenges today that I can meet with compassion. That's my orientation. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm praying for pain, praying for loss, praying for difficulty. And I think appropriate, not like my house burns down. That's like, oh, no, I was hoping that shit didn't happen. But I was looking for the opportunity to be compassionate. All right, now that I've gotten you sitting still for 45 minutes, you should be nice and uncomfortable during the sitting meditation. As you're ready, allowing your eyes to close, adjusting your posture so that it's upright but relaxed. Settling into stillness. Spending the first couple of minutes just gathering your attention with the sensations that the breath creates, focusing mindfulness of the breath. Notice tension in the jaw. Release it. Tension in the shoulders, the belly. Often clenching tension is resistance. As we practice non-resistance, softening. And then if you can get a sense of it, imagine breathing in and out of your heart center. Bring your attention to the center channel that runs between the throat and the sternum. That emotional center in the body where we experience both love and hate, both compassion and resentment. Then in this practice, we use the phrases, repeating phrases in our mind, creating the mind habit, the neural pathways. This is the training. You say to yourself silently in your own heart, may I learn to care about my own pain. I learn to care about all of the difficult, annoying, unpleasant, painful experiences I encounter. Learn to meet my pain with mercy. With acceptance, with tolerance, with non-aversion. I learn to meet my pain with compassion. So the three phrases are care and mercy and compassion. May I learn to care about my pain. May I learn to be merciful in relationship to the pain I experience. And I learn to meet my pain with compassion. And saying these phrases to yourself over and over for a couple more minutes, or using your own phrases that feel compassionate. Not wishing for the end of pain, wishing for a wise relationship to pain. We know our own desire for happiness, for freedom, so intimately. We know how difficult it is to be in pain. We extend this wish, we begin to include others with the understanding that this is a universal experience. Just as I wish to not suffer, same is true for you. In the original compassion meditations from the Buddha, he encouraged to extend compassion in the directions, east and west, north and south, to radiate compassion from your heart, extend goodwill, care. We can use these same phrases. May you learn to care about your pain. May you learn to meet pain with mercy. May you learn to meet pain with compassion. You can begin here locally in the room with the Sangha, everybody meditating together tonight. Extending compassion from your heart to the people sitting next to you, in front of you, behind you, in the Zoom room, boxes. Opening the heart, breathing in and out of the heart. Orienting, inclining the heart towards compassion, towards mercy. And extending this wish, this intention, this aspiration from our location here, meditating in Venice, to the north of us, up to through the neighborhood, up towards all of those affected by the fire in the Pacific Palisades, the devastation, the loss, the pain, the suffering. Malibu and Topanga and all of the areas affected. all of the people displaced all over the city. And then going east through Los Angeles out to Pasadena and Altadena. The massive devastation, loss. At least 2 of the people in our Sangha tonight who lost their homes out there in the Altadena neighborhood. Extending compassion, the intention of care, of mercy, of love from your heart, all of the people affected, the painful loss. Radiating the intention of compassion from your heart to the north and east, south and west. Extending in all directions until we include all living beings that are experiencing pain. The Tibetan Buddhists have a very skillful practice of compassion by breathing in the suffering of the world, breathing in all of the pain into your heart, and breathing out compassion towards all beings. Each breath acknowledging the reality of the pain in the world, breathing it in. Each exhale, compassion, mercy towards all beings. And experiment with this Tonglen breath, giving, receiving. Imagining the pain of the world as you breathe it in as a heavy smoke. And the compassion as you breathe it out as a refreshing, soothing mist. As we extend compassion in this way to all beings, not just humans, animals, of the sky, of the sea, the earth. May all beings be met with compassion. Letting go of the phrases, the extending, the Tonglen breath, just coming back to your body right here. Mindfulness. Second foundation, how's your body feel? What's pleasant? What's unpleasant? What's neutral? Breathing into any discomfort. This opportunity to become a bit more tolerant, softening, accepting. if you do this meditation and you don't feel moved, that's okay. If you feel a lot of resistance, judgment, fear, that's okay. If you feel moved and compassionate and friendly, and that's okay. This is a technique that is meant to be practiced long-term over many, many years, and with a sort of openness to see, let's see how it shifts over the months and years and decades of an orientation towards learning to care about pain, the intention to be merciful, the intention to be compassionate, to increase this skill over a long-term practice, not something that's going to happen quickly for most of us. I might have said this last week, but my experience with the heart practices, loving kindness and compassion and forgiveness, and even the appreciation practices, was a lot of resistance for the first couple of years of doing it. I would say the phrases, may I learn to care, and I couldn't even have any real internal sincerity about it. I didn't mean it yet. Or may I have compassion. I didn't, it took me for me, it was years before I could do these practices with sincerity, and a couple more years until I started to feel it, until my kind of armoring and defense and frozenness around vulnerable emotion started to melt. So some of you maybe are in my boat, and it'll take some years of practice, and some of you not. You come in, I know I get reported, people say, like, I don't have that kind of resistance. I love the encouragement and the permission to feel. And some of you have more of a, we're all starting at different places. And that's why I want to say, like, whatever your experience is okay. Lots of resistance is okay. Keep going. Non-resistance and appreciation and openness to it's good. Keep going wherever you're starting from. What I do hope is that that you keep going, that all of us kind of persevere in this development of wisdom and of compassion, and because it's really quite a long-term process. And even when you start to feel some compassion for yourself, or people, your enemies. Last week when we were doing loving kindness, we talked about the 5 categories for oneself, for one's benefactor, for the neutral people, for your enemies, and then for all beings. Likewise with compassion, also can be done in this 5 stages. Compassion for yourself. Compassion, it's a bit easier usually to feel compassion for your benefactors, your teachers, your people that are easy to love, easy to care about. Much more difficult to feel compassion for our enemies. Easier to feel compassion for our loved ones, people that we care about. Almost everyone reports that it's easier to care about others than care about ourselves. There does seem to be some wiring in most of us, maybe it's a survival instinct, that has some compassion for other people, like, I care about you, but it's not so easy to care about myself when it comes to my pain. I can tolerate your pain, but I have a hard time tolerating my pain. And there does seem to be some equation here from the inside out, that the more tolerant, the more compassionate we become for ourselves, actually, the more genuine our compassion becomes for others. The more comfortable we get being uncomfortable, the more comfortable we are with other people's pain. And in that way, we don't have to be so, it can break that tendency to be kind of codependent in that kind of having a hard time tolerating someone else's pain. The more we become tolerant, it also extends of like, oh, it's okay for you to be in pain and I care about you. But it's also, I have room for that. I have space for that. Pain's no longer the enemy or something that immediately has to be like, let me give you a tissue and let me give you a hug and please stop feeling what you're feeling. It's making me uncomfortable. It's okay. I was watching one of the fire things, some old guy that had lost his house that he'd been in forever for 60 years or something. And he was in tears and he was with, I think, his daughter or his niece or something. And she started crying and he said, "You're not allowed to cry. You got to keep it together for me. One of us has to be the strong ones." And that natural tendency of that kind of like, wait a minute, you're making me uncomfortable with your pain. Exactly. I don't know exactly how this fits. I think it does. I was reflecting earlier on how Buddhism if practiced is practiced thoroughly and appropriately, and it's a preparation for loss. It's a preparation for death. It's a preparation for pain. The Buddha encouraged several daily practices, meditation and renunciation and generosity. But he also had this simple list of the 5 daily reflections he encouraged people. He said, every day, as part of your Buddhist practice, reflect, recite, remember 5 things. And say to yourself every day, I am of the nature to age. I'm not exempt from aging. Just remind yourself every day that aging is a process that we are in. I'm of the nature to age. Aging is natural, not exempt from it. I am of the nature to become sick, injured, ill. I'm not exempt from illness, from injury, from disease. It's part of nature, aging and sickness. And then death. I am of the nature to die. This body very much alive that I'm being mindful of and developing compassion in and appreciating all of that. This body is impermanent. I'm of the nature to die. I am not exempt. This body is not exempt from dying. Remind yourself every day, sickness, aging, death. Preparation, because there's something about the human condition where we want to deny and death and we, especially in our materialist culture, but maybe all cultures, that identification with youth and not aging, and we're not culturally, we're not good at aging gracefully. Remind yourself, aging is natural. Sickness, aging, death is natural. Inevitable, not exempt. The 4th is about loss. It says, say to yourself every day, everything that I hold near and dear, everything that I love, I will be separated from, I will lose. I don't get to keep anything. Now, he's talking ultimately about death, but also could have a fire and lose everything. All of your stuff all of a sudden. My friend Mandy that's here tonight, Zen, who I think is online. I don't know anybody else in the Sangha tonight that just lost their home. You didn't wake up on Tuesday and think like, oh, I'm going to lose it, and everything gone. And this reflection of eventually I'm going to lose everything. This reflection really is about at death. You're going to lose everything that you've been clinging to, and you're going to lose. But maybe before death, maybe in this lifetime, you might lose all your stuff, everything that you hold near and dear. And the fifth reflection is about karma, sickness, aging, death, loss. The fifth daily reflection traditionally says something like, my only true possession is my karma. And karma as in how I behave, how I act, how I respond. That's what I own. And so like with this series of practices, these teachings, your compassion, right? We could say my only true possession is how much compassion I develop. That's karma, my action of responding, of behaving compassionately, responding to pain with compassion. You own that. You become that compassion, not your stuff, but your wisdom, your compassion, your loving kindness, your generosity. The positive karma producing behaviors that Buddhism teaches us and encourages is generosity and compassion and forgiveness and non-attachment and love and kindness. That creates positive karma. And so this fifth reflection is saying, the only thing you really own is your karma. Now, that also means your negative karma. The dishonesty and the anger and the resentment and the fear, you own that too. So the huge encouragement towards develop more compassion, less resentment, more generosity, less selfishness, more love, less hatred, more, really want your karma to be on the positive side of things, because that's what we really actually own. Our stuff is impermanent. Our wisdom is who we are, is what we are. And so the whole Buddhist path, which is the encouragement to develop more wisdom and alleviate the suffering of living a life that doesn't have compassion. Training the heart and the mind to be more and more loving and compassionate. So these are my reflections. We have a few minutes if there's any questions, comments, please. Anything's fine.
So much forgiveness up to in a cycle of huge people until we survive into safety, hatred, and revenge.
Let me try to repeat it for the people at home that probably couldn't hear it. The question is, what about when our compassion has maybe been more for others and not as much for ourselves, and we put ourselves in situations where we're being taken advantage of or abused or harmed in some way? And I'm glad we're going to end with this. I said it a little bit before. I think for our compassion to be genuine, maybe start with this. Since you're identifying this in your life, make yourself the priority. Make self-compassion the priority. Put yourself first. Even maybe that's difficult for a lot of people, but put yourself first, and be willing to disappoint or others, and say, for now, because I've gone too far in putting other people before me, I need to come back, and it might even look selfish, but you need to balance that. So self-compassion as your primary practice for now. Boundaries. Now here's a maybe challenging perspective. If we really have compassion for those people that are hurting us, we won't let them hurt us if there's something that we can do because of the understanding of karma. Anytime you're allowing someone, and you know, allowing is relative, but if you sort of know this person is going to mistreat me and I'm putting up with it because I have compassion for their confusion, you're actually allowing them to create negative karma in relationship to you. And so out of compassion, for I don't want you to create negative karma for yourself, we're done. Because you keep hurting me, which is hurting you. Now, maybe you're so selfless that you're like, I don't care if you hurt me. But I do care about you. And if you really care about them, you wouldn't let them, if you can do something about it, hurt you. That sort of boundary. Now, this is tricky because it's not like we can always like make people stop, but we can stop playing into it. We can stop participating in it. We can put whatever boundaries, you know, we can sever those connections when we know this person's going to keep hurting me and therefore keep hurting themselves if I continue to engage in it. Out of compassion for myself, don't fucking hurt me. Out of compassion for you, don't fucking hurt me. Does that make sense? I mean, this is sort of an advanced karmic perspective, I think. But I found it useful when sometimes maybe we might not have enough compassion for ourselves, as you said. But we do, if you really have compassion for someone else, you wouldn't let them hurt you if there was something that you could do to stop that. Because nobody gets away with anything ever in this plane of existence. And every time somebody harms someone else intentionally, they're creating that fifth reflection. They're creating what they actually own is that harm. And I want to come back to where I started, which is self-compassion. Just focus on you and not engaging in those relationships. It's tricky, you know, it depends on, you know, if we're talking about our family, it gets tricky because it's kind of like, yeah, well, my family's fucked up, but I love them, but they constantly hurt me. But, you know, we can develop healthier boundaries even with family. And at some point, maybe we can kind of go into those dynamics when we develop more self-compassion, better boundaries, more wisdom, and say like, yeah, I can deal with my fucked up family and not take it as personally and not be as, you know, entangled in it. But maybe sometimes we need a break from those types of relationships before we can re-enter them with better wisdom, with more equanimity. Does that make sense? Was there anything else about that question? I totally get that. Do you get that? That like resentment feels protective. That hatred doesn't feel that bad because it feels powerful and it feels like that's what keeps my boundaries up. I fucking hate you, so I have boundaries. If I have compassion for you, will I still? If you have real compassion in this perspective, you will still have maybe compassion will even be better boundaries. And then the great thing about compassion is when you really feel it, you will have good boundaries out of compassion. and it won't create negative karma for you. The problem with hatred is like, yeah, it feels good, but it is hurting me too. It has me avoiding those toxic, painful, whatever, but it's also hurting me. The Buddha talked about hatred as an ember from the fire that we throw at our enemies. It burns us in the process of attacking, like, I'm gonna fucking get you. Oh fuck, I just burned the shit out of my hand trying to hurt you with my anger. And compassion doesn't hurt you. And with true compassion, that understanding of like, oh no, we're not doing that anymore, because I care about myself enough to not put myself in that situation. And actually, I care about you enough to not put you in this situation. Advanced, but it's where the practice leads, I believe. We're out of time. We can talk afterwards if you
I
want.
just wanted to share something. Center with forceful compassion. Like that.
In Tibet, did the Tibetans? Forceful or fierce? Forceful.
So you could put a stop to it compassionately.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Kind of like what you're saying, but I was like, ooh, that's cool.
yeah. I mean, these images of the demons are actually compassionate deities, fierce compassion, that sometimes you just need to bite their fucking heads off with all the loving kindness in your heart. I was thinking last week after class when we were talking about the situation of this story that Sharon Salzberg talks about when she was in India going to see one of her meditation teachers, and she was sexually assaulted in the rickshaw. Somebody reached in and grabbed her boobs, and she's just shocked, and having been sexually assaulted, and on the way to her meditation teacher, and when she got to her meditation teacher, she's like, well, I was trying to do loving kindness, like, what do I do? And the meditation teacher said, she said, do you have your umbrella with you? And she said, yeah, I had my umbrella. He's like, it's monsoon season or something. He said, well, next time something like that happens, with all of the loving kindness in your heart, take that umbrella and hit him over the head with it. And so I was thinking about last week, I talked to you about carrying mace. And I was thinking about, if you're ever attacked, if you're feeling unsafe, with all of the compassion and loving kindness in your heart, take that mace and spray him in the fucking eyes. May you be free from suffering. May you be happy. May you be at ease. May you leave me the fuck alone. There is a place for that. Out of wisdom, out of compassion, out of self-defense. Absolutely. Okay. I have a day-long meditation opportunity for all of you on February 2nd from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. here. We'll be doing sitting meditation and walking meditation. It's in a couple weeks. If you're local, you're welcome to come. It'd be good if you registered. It's $50. What are the prices? So if you have money, register, pay $50. If you don't have money, come for free. Do it for donation. You're all welcome to come. The $50 goes to help paying the rent. Last week, I mentioned that my landlord notified me recently that I'm $5,000 behind on rent because I didn't pay the increase that was the last increase. So the center owes $5,000 to the landlords. So your generosity is needed and is appreciated. If you can give a large donation or $50, come to the day long, all of that will help to go pay the rent on this place so we keep the meditation center. And then we have a 5-day, 4-night, 5 days meditation retreat, May 13th through 18th in Joshua Tree. Also, that's open for registration on the Against the Stream site. The day long, we're actually registering through Refuge Recovery because it's for the Refuge Recovery, but everybody's welcome. We're just going to be doing sitting and walking practice. So join us for that day long. If you want to register, refugerecovery.org, day long residential retreat, againstthestream.com. Please be generous with your donations. May any goodness that comes from our practice be shared outward in all directions. May each one of us embody compassion more and more in this lifetime. And together, may we create a positive change on this planet.